paten from underneath. He takes the purificator and gently wipes the surface of the paten. He then sets the purificator to the side, takes the paten between the second and third finger of the right hand, and holds it upright with the concave surface facing the corporal and the edge next to, but not on, the corporal. He now begins the prayer, Libera nos, in the quiet voice. He makes a medium head bow to the Missal at the name of Mary. At the words, Da propitius pacem in diebus nostris, he makes the sign of the cross on himself with the paten. The left hand is placed against the breast, while the right hand touches the edge of the paten to the forehead, breast, left, and right shoulders. He then immediately kisses the top edge of the paten, and as he says the remaining words of the prayer, he places his left hand on the corporal, and with the right hand slides the paten underneath the host. He then sets the paten on the corporal, uncovers the chalice, and genuflects. He takes the host at the edge with the right hand, and holds it with the thumb and forefinger of both hands over the chalice. He then says the words, Per iundum Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium Tuum, as he breaks the host vertically into 2 equal pieces, making a low head bow as he says the holy name. He sets the right half down onto the paten, runs his thumb and forefinger over the edge of the left half to send any particles into the chalice. He says, Qui tecum vivit et regnat, as he breaks off a small piece from the bottom of the remaining half. He finishes, In unitate Spiritus Sancti Deus, as he sets the remaining half onto the paten. He then takes the chalice at the stem with the left hand, and holding the particle over the chalice, says in the loud voice,
Per omnia saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
He then makes 3 horizontal signs of the cross with the particle from lip to lip of the chalice, as he says,
Pax Domini sit semper vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
He then begins in the low tone the Haec Commixio, and drops the particle into the chalice. He purifies his fingers over the chalice and finishes the prayer, making a low head bow at the holy name. He then covers the chalice and genuflects. After the Fraxio, the priest says the Agnus Dei. The Agnus Dei is said in the loud voice, and the priest strikes his breast as he says each Miserere Nobis and the Dona Nobis Pacem. He begins by making a medium bow of the body, with hands joined, but not resting on the altar. He then says the prayer,
Agnus Dei qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei qui tollis peccata mundi, dona nobis pacem.
At the words, Miserere Nobis, he lays his left hand on the corporal and strikes his breast with the tips of the 3 extended fingers of his right hand. He repeats this gesture as he says the second Miserere Nobis and the Dona Nobis Pacem. After the Agnus Dei, the priest remains bowed and places his joined hands on the altar as he says the 3 prayers before communion in the quiet voice. He keeps his eyes fixed intently on the sacred host as he says all 3 prayers, the Domine Iesu Christi qui dixisti, the Domine Iesu Christi Filii Dei Vivi, and the Perceptio Corporis Tui. Note that the priest does not bow his head as he mentions the holy name, since he is already bowed over the altar. When he finishes these prayers, the priest straightens, genuflects, and says in the quiet voice, Panem celestem accipiam et nomen Domini invocabo. He then takes both halves of the host with his right hand and places them upright in the left. He takes the paten with his right hand and places it on the 3 extended fingers of the left hand underneath the host. Holding the host upright over the paten and keeping the paten above the corporal, he then makes a medium bow of the body and says in the loud voice,
Domine non sum Deus.
as he strikes his breast with his right hand.
Domine non sum Dinos. Domine non sum Dinos.
Each time he says the first 4 words
Domine non sum Dinos.
in the loud voice as he strikes his breast, and then says the remainder of the prayer in the quiet voice. He then straightens and overlaps the 2 halves of the host and takes them in his right hand. He makes a vertical sign of the cross with the host over himself, careful not to go beyond the edges of the paten. As he makes the sign of the cross with the host, he says in the quiet voice, Corpus Domini Nostri Jesu Christi, custodiet animam meam in vitam aeternam. Amen, making a low head bow as he says the holy name. He then bows profoundly over the corporal, resting his forearms on the edge of the altar. He holds the host over the paten, keeping the paten under his chin and above the corporal. He then reverently receives the entire host. He immediately stands erect and places the paten on the corporal. He may purify his fingers over the paten if necessary. He then joins his hands before his face and pauses in meditation until he has swallowed the host. As soon as he has swallowed the host, he immediately begins the prayer, Quid retribuam, in the quiet voice, as he uncovers the chalice and genuflects. He stops after the phrase, Que retribuit mihi, and takes the paten in his left hand. If there are particles visible on the paten, he should purify the paten into the chalice by holding it above the chalice with his left hand and drawing the particles down into the chalice with his right thumb and forefinger. He then transfers the paten to his right hand and scrapes the corporal where the host lay during Mass. He should be particularly diligent in scraping the creases and corners where particles are likely to gather. If necessary, he can lift the edge of the corporal with the left hand. He need not be overly scrupulous in scraping the corporal, but worry only about those particles which are clearly visible. He then transfers the paten to the left hand and purifies it over the chalice as before. He lays his left hand, still holding the paten, on the corporal, and finishes the prayer as he takes the chalice with the right hand, saying, Calicem salutaris accipiam et nomen Domini invocabo. He makes a vertical sign of the cross with the chalice over himself, as he says in the quiet voice, Sanguis Domini Nostri Jesu Christi, custodiet animam meam in vitam aeternam. Amen, bowing his head at the holy name. Before the priest drinks the precious blood, he should make sure the cross on the base of the chalice is facing towards himself, so that he drinks from the edge of the lip which is immediately above the cross. He then holds the paten under his chin and drinks the entire contents of the chalice, preferably in one swallow. He then sets the chalice on the corporal. When the priest does not distribute communion at Mass, after he has drunk the precious blood, he immediately places the chalice at the edge of the corporal, and the server pours wine into the chalice. He should tip the chalice towards the server, with the cross facing the direction the server will pour, so that the wine runs down the same side that the priest drank the precious blood. The left hand holds the paten, resting on the corporal. While the server pours the wine, the priest says the prayer for the first ablution, Quod ore sumpsimus. He lifts the chalice slightly to indicate to the server when enough wine has been poured. Then, holding the chalice over the corporal, he rotates it slightly so that the wine passes over the entire surface which was covered by the precious blood. He then holds the paten underneath his chin and drinks the first ablution, making sure to drink from the edge of the lip which is above the cross. He then sets down both the chalice and the paten on the corporal, and takes the cup of the chalice with both hands, keeping his thumb and forefinger joined over the cup. He carries the chalice to the epistle corner, keeping it over the mensa of the altar. The server pours first wine and then water over the priest's fingers for the second ablution, during which the priest says the prayer, Corpus tuum Domine quod sumsi. For this ablution, the priest should take only a little wine, but a larger quantity of water. He lifts his fingers to signal the server when he has poured enough. He may bow his head to the server as he departs. He then sets the chalice on the altar immediately to the left of the purificator. He shakes any excess drops from his fingers, takes the purificator with the right hand, and dries his fingers at the place of the cross on the purificator. Once his fingers are dry, they are purified, and he may now separate his thumb and forefinger. He then places his left hand on the altar and takes the chalice with his right hand and again carefully rotates it over the corporal so that the ablution passes over the entire surface covered by the precious blood. He holds the purificator under his chin, makes sure the cross on the chalice is facing him, and drinks the second ablution. He sets the chalice down on the corporal and wipes his mouth with the purificator. He then dries the chalice. He takes the purificator in the right hand and holds the chalice with his left hand as he wipes out the inside of the cup until it is dry. While the priest is purifying the chalice, the server transfers the missal and the chalice veil. The priest sets the chalice in the center of the corporal, lays the purificator over top with the cross in the center, sets the paten and the pall on top, and then moves the chalice to the side and refolds the corporal. First the bottom fold, then the top, then the epistle side, and then the gospel side. The server holds open the burse, and the priest puts the corporal in the burse with the right hand. He then takes the chalice veil from the server and covers the chalice completely. He sets the burse on